Hello everyone. As you probably know from the name of the blog, I'm really interested in 6mm gaming, and today I want to show you a neat game that's coming out December 13th. It's called Full Spectrum Dominance. It's a 6mm combined arms, small scale war game. Small scale as in you're not going to wield entire armies, you're going to wield smaller units, smaller forces. The thing that you're now seeing on the board is almost exactly the same thing as an introductory scenario to the game. As all introductory scenarios, it's going to be a bit smaller, it's going to use smaller forces. I'm going to use it to display some of the mechanics, not all of them. I don't want to do that because that doesn't make sense. I'll tell you a little bit about the game, show you the forces, and we'll get underway.
Hi there, Future Me speaking. I mentioned it more extensively in the end of the video, but to make everything clear and transparent, this review is not sponsored, but it could be considered influenced. What does that mean exactly will be explained later on. I just wanted to let you know.
In this scenario, a small unit of enlisted, aka your standard humans, is going to be fighting the tech, aka big angry AI robots, and small angry AI robots. As I mentioned in the introductory, this is a 6mm scale game. However, it's not as simple as that and not as constraining as that. Everything in the game, all measurements at least, is based upon a thing called a distance unit. Depending on the scale you're playing, the distance unit might have a different value. So, for example, if I'm playing 6mm, the suggested distance unit is 3 inches. This much. This means that if I move a unit by a distance unit, I'm actually moving it by 3 inches. If I move a unit by 2 distance units, I'm moving it by 6 inches. There's a little caveat to that, but I'll get to that in a moment. What does that mean in practice? Well, if I would like to play in 15mm instead of 6, I can just double the amount of inches that a distance unit has. So instead of measuring 3 inches for 6mm, I can measure 6 inches for 15mm. And nothing on the stats wise of the units actually changes. The game is pretty balanced and pretty neatly composed in that way. So what did I have in mind that 2 distance units isn't actually the same thing as 6 inches? Well, I'm jumping a little bit ahead in here, but let's say that I would like to move this big stompy robot up its full move value, which is 2 distance units. That means that I can do 2 moves of each of them can be up to the distance a distance unit is. So, if I want to move him, I can move him 3 and then 3 again, which is 6 inches, right? Straight line. This is not exactly the same when you try to maneuver in tight spaces. So for example, if I'm here and I would like to end my move here, technically I could move, I can end up somewhere in here, right? That would be 6 inches. Distance units, I can move 1.5 inch forward to pass this corner and then 3 inches sideways. So you see I lost almost an inch or an inch and a half there. That's the caveat, that's the trick. It makes movement a bit more interesting because you have to separate all the movements into specific sections. The game board, at least its size, is also measured in distance units. So if I, in the example that I gave before, if I want to do the 15mm game and increase the distance unit by 2, so one is distance unit is 6 inches, the board size described in scenarios usually is around 8 by 12 distance units. That means that in the game mechanics nothing is actually changing, but reality-wise, I need to do a double the size board. That's a very neat trick to actually get your other miniatures also in play. And you don't actually need a lot of miniatures to start playing, which is also cool. And of course, this is a miniature agnostic game, so again, pretty cool. For this demo, I'm using the original tech units that are available on My Mini Factory. I also have the original enlisted, however they're unpainted, and showing unpainted units on a video is very uncool, so I'm just throwing in some tanks and infantry which I had from some time ago. Okay, that seems about enough of the introductory of distance units. Now let's jump into the armies themselves and take a look at what's going on there. Let's talk a little bit about units and army composition without going into too much details of the stats the specific units have. When you're going to play full spectrum dominance, you're most likely going to play scenario. Scenarios last for a few rounds, usually 6. Scenarios are based on two forces fighting each other. The forces are constructed of the same amount of points. As you can see, each unit in its top right corner has a point value. For example, this medium battle tank has a value of 5 points, which is not great, not terrible. In a 60-point game lasting for 6 rounds, you're usually going to see your units coming in waves. What does that mean exactly? For the introductory scenario, I'm going to be using 2 forces of 24 points each. The forces are going to be separated into 2 task groups. Starting off, there's going to be a force consisting of 20 points, of up to 20 points on the table, and on turn 2, all the other units are going to enter. This is typical in full spectrum dominance. The amount and composition of the units that are going to enter the game later on depends on the scenario. What you need to understand is that even if you're playing a bigger game, for example 60 points, you're not going to get everything you have from turn 1. There's going to be half of the units which is going to start on the table and it's going to be available on the spot, and the rest is going to come in waves. It depends on the scenario and on the points value of the specific scenario. Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail on that. It's not really that complicated. Just wanted to highlight that things are going to be available as time progresses. With that said, let's talk just a little bit about the units. There are basically 3 types of units. There's infantry, which comes 2 or 3 to a stand to a unit. They don't have specific hit points. If you hit and damage infantry, you just remove stands. You have mechs, which are like different kind of vehicle. A different kind of vehicle. There's something in between infantry and vehicle actually. So yeah, like a mech, like you would expect. And you have vehicles. In this case, a medium battle tank or a support vehicle. When constructing your army, you have 2 types of cards that you can use. The faction-specific cards, yellow in this case for tech, and green in this case for the enlisted, and neutral cards, which if you take just a little bit of more attention, you'll see that this one isn't actually green, it's gray. So every faction, for the moment just 2, but that's common, that more are coming. Every faction can have a support vehicle. Almost every faction can have infantrymen. I'm not gonna go into too much details on that. It's all described in the rulebook with reasons why. And besides units, you can also buy support cards. For example, this satellite uplink is a support card which is going to be used by the enlisted. This infantry and so is a faction-specific support card, or rather character card, which can be used by the enlisted. Okay, I think that this is enough prep work. I'll set the board for a sample game and I'm going to do a few actions, maybe a turn or 2, just to show you guys how this actually plays. Be back in a moment. Another cool mechanic of full spectrum dominance besides distance units are activation dice. Each scenario is going to specify 2 numbers. The amount of activation dice in total per player and the replenish value of the activation dice. For this scenario, the amount of activation dice per player is going to be 8, and the replenish size is going to be 5. I already rolled off, and the enlisted on that side of the board are going to go first. Even though they're going first, both players roll their activation dice, so they take the amount up to the amount of the replenish value. That's 5 for this scenario, and they're going to roll it. I think I'm okay with this roll. If I would not be okay, for example, I don't want these 2 frees, I would like to have something better, I can take any amount of the dice that I've already rolled and re-roll them once, keeping the second roll. Okay, that's going to be a little bit better. Sorry for hiding dice. What do I need these for? Well, 2 things. First of all, if I want to activate a unit, I need to spend 8 dice and move it from the activation pool to the spent pool, and then I can activate any of the units and make 2 actions with it. Other actions? We'll get to that in a little bit. What do I also need them for? Well, if you take a look at a unit card, you'll notice it has a very nice handy slot here. A rectangular slot with a number. This means that this unit has some kind of special ability, special weapon, whatever. And you need to put a activation die here with the specific number to be able to use it. Why am I mentioning this now? Well, because even though the enlisted won the roll-off, the player who did not roll the roll-off, who did not win the roll-off, can put any of these dice on his unit cards. I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to take the 6 that I rolled and put it on my Socrates battle rig right here. That means that I'll be able to use the light cannon when its time comes, or if I decide to react. If this was not here and I would like to react, I can react with the Socrates, but I can't use any of these additional items that require activation dice. So for the moment, I'm going to put this 6 here. It's the enlisted turn, and since I'm going to play a very noob AI, it's not going to know what it's doing, so in the best manner, it's just going to move forward. It's going to spend 1 die and activate the main battle tank. The main battle tank has a move of 3 distance units. Just a reminder that a distance unit is 3 inches for the purpose of this game. So it's just going to move 3 inches, like so. Then it's going to move 3 inches like so. And to make it more interesting, it's going to move 3 inches like so, ending over there. As its second action, it has a light machine gun, because the enlisted player didn't want to spend any dice. The light machine gun has a range of 2 distance units, which means that it shoots up to 6 inches. There's no one in range for 6 inches, but I can try firing at extreme ranges. Firing at extreme ranges mean that I can shoot up to 2 times the range, but I get a minus modifier to the dice roll. Let's say that I'm still going to try to do that with the main battle tank, and he's going to try to shoot at this Socrates battle rig here. He's probably not in range, but I'll just fudge it just a little bit to be in range. Well, how does shooting work? Well, you grab yourself the amount of dice specified on the card, which is 3d6. Then you take a look at the card of the unit you're going to shoot, which is the Socrates. It has a defense of 4+, which means that I need to roll 4 or better to hit it. Because I'm rolling at extreme range, I'm adding +1 to make it harder. So I'm going to need 5s or better to hit it. And wouldn't you know it, I have no 5s, which means this was a miss. Those were the 2 actions of the main battle tank. Now activation is going to move to the tech side. Well, the tech has a very nice Xeno battle rig, and while this unit also has a light machine gun, it has a few cool abilities. It has a jump jet and it has a power fist, which is 2d10. That's a nice kick. So I'm going to take out of the 4 dice that I already that I have. One is on the Socrates battle rig, and these are in the spent pool. I'm going to put the 1 on the jump jets. I'm going to put the 5 on the power fist, and I'm going to put use the free to activate the unit. When I'm activating it, I'm going to use the 1 as the jump jet ability, which means that I can jump up to 4 distance units. That's going to be 12 inches. And I'm just out of range. Let's say that the guy was just a little bit closer. It doesn't really matter. I just want to show off the mechanic. He's perfectly within range, so I can use my jump jets. And please insert, future me, please insert some kind of cool noise, jump jet noise here, to jump right at him. And then I can take the 5, and instead of doing the free light machine gun attack, I can do the power fist attack. Why can't I do both? Because each unit can perform 2 actions, and 1 action was the jump. I can either do the light machine gun or the power fist. I'm going to go with the power fist. That leaves me with 1 die in the active pool and 7 in the spent pool. I'm going to roll off the power fist. The power fist has a few interesting things. First of all, here I'm up close and personal. Being up close and personal means that you automatically gain an armor piercing value of 1. For the purpose of this attack, this is not going to do much because the power fist on its own already has a armor piercing of 2. Technically, this would mean that it has an armor piercing of 3, but it doesn't make much of a difference here. So 2d10, I'm attacking the main battle tank, which has a defense of, you guessed it, 4. Most of the units here in this game have a defense of 4, which means I need to roll 4s on 2d10s. I rolled a 9 and the 1, which means this one hits, this one doesn't. For the purpose of the demo, I rolled a 7, so I got 2 hits. What does that mean? The main battle tank can suffer 2 hits. However, it has a save of d10 and a number 3. This means that for each wound that it is scored, it gets to save that wound on a d10 rolling 3 dice. In other words, the Socrates scored a 9. There you go, the Socrates scored a 9. If it had no armor piercing ability, I would have 3 rolls of a d10 to roll a 9 or higher. Since that's a Xeno, not Socrates. Since the Xeno has armor piercing, it subtracts the amount of dice that you can save with to a minimum of 1. So this save is actually reduced to a single die. I need to roll 9 or higher. I roll a 7, which means that this unit suffers a wound. There's not a lot of bookkeeping in this game, which is perfect. I love games with little bookkeeping. This is not infantry, so he's not dead automatically. There's a nice little chart down here, describing what a hit actually transfers to. I'm going to take a d6. You always take a d6 and roll. And I rolled a 5. A 5 is mentioned as S2. S2 means the cannon. What does that mean? I should put a token here stating that the S2 was hit. This means that that specific tank can no longer use its cannon. The Xeno jumped in the air with its jump jets and punched it into the cannon so hard that it broke, and that tank is unable to use the cannon. Why should I put a token to market? Well, this damage is permanent, that's one. And that's one thing. The other thing is that if this specific tank would get hit into the same slot, which S2 a second time, it would be dead. Getting hit in the same slot 2 times, you're dead. This is especially dangerous for this one because S2 is both 4 and 5. There's also an obviously dead result. If you roll a 1, that's typical for most, if not everything. So this tank moved us just a little bit too far. The Xeno jumped out, punched it in the face, broke the cannon. Now it's the enlisted turn again. The enlisted will spend another action die. They're going to move their infantry. The infantry has a move of 2 distance units, so it's just going to jump into this building, and they're going to fire at the Xeno. That was their first action. The second action is going to be firing their rifles. Their rifles have a 2 distance unit range, so they're perfectly in range over there. They have a 1d6 per base, which means that since there's 3 bases there, I'm going to roll 3d6 to hit the Xeno. And that's a 5, 5 and a 3. The Xeno has a defense of, you guessed it, 4+, which means that these 2 are potential hits. However, the Xeno has a defense of d10, 2. So for each of the 5s, I'm taking 2 d10s and I'm testing if I can save it. First one, save with a 5. The second one, that's actually a hit. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, the infantry actually did something. Let's see what it did. The Xeno is much more fragile. 1, 2 is dead, 3, 4 is the jump jet, 5, 6 is the move. 1, dead. Huh, wouldn't you know it? Boom, you blew up, man. That was unintended, but pretty cool. What do we have now? It's the tech turn again. I could press the pause and try to do something. And if both players pause, then we're actually ending this round and going into the next round. Or B, I still have 1 die left and I can use it to activate something. So you might be wondering at that point, was it really useful to run that Xeno and spend 3 activation dice to get, well, not a lot of things done, right? You can only now activate 1 of these. That's not true. There's another cool mechanic here in play. It's called the command. Not all of the units, but some of them, especially the more expensive ones, have a command value. This means that if I spend a die to activate this unit, I can check how many units are within 2 distance units, and this is going to be just this one, battle droid formation, and activate them without spending an activation dice. Right, so I can spend a activation die, the last one that I have, to activate the Socrates, move with the Socrates, and then, right after he's done, activate the battle droids and move with them. If these were closer, then I could also activate them. However, I've moved them just a little bit too far, just a little bit out of range, so they can't be activated with this activation, with this command value. Oh, of course, I completely lost it, because as you remember, I actually put a 6 on this light cannon, right? Which means that I could have reacted with the with the Socrates battle rig to their movement or to his movement and actually use this 6 to fire his light cannon at it. Why didn't I do that? Well, because if you react, you only get to do 1 action instead of the normal 2, and the unit counts as being activated, and you also need to spend a die to react. So, like I mentioned, I'm activating the Socrates Battle Rig. He's going to do... First of all, he is going to check if he's in range. He is in range. So, and in range meaning 9 inches. He's fudging it just a little bit, but yeah, he is. And the light cannon is also in 9 inches, which is also okay. So first of all, I'm going to activate him and fire the light cannon at that damage tank. That's a 7 and a 3. A 3 is a miss, a 7 is a hit. The light cannon has a armor piercing of 2, so it's going to be just 1 die to defend. And I just broke my unit. Oh my goodness, don't do that. Don't throw your dice into your own units. Ah! Oh well, mistakes were made. Anyway, I was unable to save. So let's see what that die did. That's a 5. A 5 is, in the main battle tank, it's an S2, which means that the second hit to the S2 system for that tank is going to be destroyed and eliminated. I have a second action. I could move, but there's also some infantry over there. They're 16 inches away, which means they're not in range of the base range of the light machine gun. They're in extreme range of it. I'm still gonna try, but it's gonna fail. And why? Well, first of all, the infantry defense 4, like everything in the game, means that I need 4s to hit. I'm shooting at extreme range, which means that I need 5s to hit. Then, that infantry is touching a building. Infantry in buildings or in terrain are very hard to kill. For infantry, if you're touching terrain that gives you cover, you get 2 to your defense value, which means that the 5 becomes a 7. And I can't roll a 7 on a d6, it's an automatic miss. If that would not be infantry, but perhaps a support vehicle, as in that one, then the bonus it would get would be 1 instead of 2, so a 5 would become a 6, and that would be hittable. Difficult, but doable. What I didn't also mention, because I got wrapped up into this exciting game, is that units that are hit get pinned. So this tank that was here, when it got hit for the first time, it would actually get some kind of token indicating that it's pinned. A pinned unit has to, as its first action, remove the pin status. So that literally translates to you get to do 1 action less. To pin a vehicle or a mech, you need to do some damage on it. To pin a infantry unit, you just have to hit it. You don't actually have to do any kind of damage. Infantry is easier to pin, but harder to kill and cover. So besides activating units on your turn, you can deploy units as part of your move, which usually happens on further rounds, and or you could use support cards if you have any. This support card will be available to the enlisted player on round 2, so he can't actually play it now, and it doesn't make much sense to play it here now either, but just for your information. I think we can wrap up. I'm not gonna continue because I just wanted to show you the basic mechanics of how things are played, how things are done. I think that this is a really nice, elegant game. The close quarter rules encourage you to actually get in there, get aggressive, get fast. Since this is objective based, this was just a free-for-all shoot-off, but most scenarios are objective based, and you really need to get into those objectives and grab them as soon as you can. The entirety of the game is also based on victory cards rather than some kind of point. This depends heavily on the scenario, but for at least for at least a few of the scenarios. For each time you score an objective, you take a victory card. I'm going to display a victory card right now. They basically have two sides, two levels. You can either play the thing that's on the top and get less points, or the thing that's on the bottom and get more points. At the end of the game, at round 6 or whatever the scenario states, whoever player has more victory points is the winner. I really think that this is an elegant design, a really nice game. I'm definitely going to be playing more as soon as I can get some opponents to play them. This should definitely be on your radar if you're a 6mm or 15mm fan. I think you could probably play it in 28mm, but it's either going to be upscaled very, very highly, or you're going to use shorter distance units. A few more words on the distance units. The recommended distance is 3 inches for 6mm scale. That doesn't mean that you need to stick to it. You can shorten it to have a smaller board, a smaller unit footprint, and fit on a kitchen table or on a small dining room table. What you're seeing now, this is a kill team board. It's a little bit out of proportions for the introductory scenario. It's a little bit too short and a little bit too wide. That didn't bother me at all to use it to play the introductory scenarios. The regular scenarios, you're going to require something that's at least 90 centimeters by 60 centimeters. 90 centimeters by 60 centimeters. So one kill team board isn't gonna cut it. Two most certainly are. Or if you want to do custom boards, hey, that's up to you. There's two kinds of while on the topic of boards and terrain, there's two kinds of terrain here. One is line of sight blocking, the other one is not line of sight blocking, just obscuring. I could go into details on how specific things work, how they're played, etc., etc. I don't want to. I think that this is a very good game and you should invest the few bucks to get it. Speaking about that, it's going to be available on December 13th on My Manufactory, their Kickstarter alternative. And with that, you're going to get some sweet STLs for objectives, possibly terrain, and some very nice deals for the units. This review is not sponsored. However, I found the project by accident in its mid-development phase, and I've been quite active in the development, in proofreading and telling the authors what I think about it. And for that, he actually sent me some very, very nice STLs. So it's not sponsored, but if you think that I'm biased, well, there's a little bit of proof to that. I don't think so. I still think that the game is great, and I'm definitely gonna support it on the 13th of December. So hopefully see you there. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, if I blew something up, then maybe I did. Leave it in the comments and I'll try to do my best to, well, nothing. Since this is a video, I'll try to do my best in the future. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye.